Hi everybody, I'm Jim Skelly and this is the Global Conversation. It's the second mini lecture of the spring semester in 2012. A couple of different things to talk to you about. I'll be on my way to and I'll probably have a report for you, I hope, next week. I'll be on my way to Turkey to a conference sponsored by the European Students Forum, known as AGE. It's their European board meeting, so the most activist members of the association will be gathering in Izmir, Turkey. They've asked me to speak on a panel around the conflict in the South Caucasus region. And it has been what has been called an ethnic or identity conflict, etc., in that part of the world, or conflicts. But one of the things that is worth sort of confronting, I think, is the deeper structure. As some of you will know, I constantly try to emphasize the importance of looking at the context. And just as in Darfur, where you have a conflict that could be traced back to climate change, in this case you have to look at the energy circumstances. This is an area on the Caspian Sea which has rich energy resources, and Michael Clare, our friend at Hampshire College in Massachusetts, who is one of the experts on resource conflicts, thinks that this area is ripe for even more conflict as various large geopolitical and corporate entities essentially fight over access to these resources. So for those of you who are interested in energy issues, you might take a further look at that, and I'll probably have something more to report to you about that next week. Now, I'm also going to be meeting with a number of members of the Environmental Working Group of AGE. Carolina, our teaching assistant from Lithuania, has been a very active member of this group, and even though she won't be in Turkey, we have started a conversation, and we hope that they will be even more involved in this course. So we're looking forward to that very, very much, and we want to spread the geographic range of students and also the countries from which they hail. So that too is exciting, and I hope I have something to report to you about that next week as well. Now, this week I've just posted an exercise for you to do. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this. You will be watching, I think, around now, if you haven't already watched it, the video with Annie Leonard called The Story of Stuff. We also put in a critique of it. You know, there are some people who think that the story of stuff is going to foster communism or something like that. Well, you can make up your own mind about it. One of the things to pay attention to in her video is the way in which costs are externalized, right? The externalization of costs. I'm not going to say too much about it other than that it is an important issue. She raises the question when she has to pay something like $5 for a little radio, and she says, how can it cost so little? Well, you'll see how it costs so little. And this idea of the externalization of costs led us last semester to start a new exercise, and I'd like you all to really take it on. It's not very simple. It's very simple, and essentially you'll have a week to do it in. But what we ask you to do, there's two parts to it. I'll tell you about part 2 next week. But in the first part, what we want you to do is do an inventory of 20 items of yours, okay? So what this means essentially is looking at where they come from. Very simple, right? So, I mean, I would take items of clothing, for example, personal items like shampoo, toothpaste, and then other items, mobile phones, computers, hair dryers, things like that, and see where they come from, okay? So make a list of, take say 10 items of clothing, 5 personal items, and some other items as well, so that you have a total of about 20. And then put the country, how many shirts, for example, come from a particular country, right? We put up an example there. All you got to do is post by clicking on the button of the person below you, and let's see if we can't get a lot of good inputs from it. I think you will find, as other students have in the past, that this is really an educative experience. People are always surprised to see how globalized our world is, and the evidence is in your own stuff. So take a look at it and give us a post as soon as you can. And then I'll tell you about part 2 when I come back. Both of them very, very simple, but worth knowing about, okay? And it gives you a sense of how, in a certain way, you're complicit with the overall system, okay? Now, a couple of other things. I hope you're watching the extreme weather events that we're getting here in Europe. Boy, is it cold. Cold, and a lot of the mainland of the United Kingdom, the so-called United Kingdom, as some people in Ireland say, the weather has basically shut down. A lot of snow, and enormous amounts of snow across Europe. And a lot of people started with the term global warming. Well, it's true that temperatures are slowly going up. And, they say global warming, climate is because of climate change, etc. But John Holdren, President Obama's science advisor, uses a term which I try to remind myself to use. And that term is climate disruption, right? It's not just that the climate is changing, like, oh, it's great, it's getting a little bit warmer in places where it's used to be cold, right? It is disruption of the climate. Things are not predictable anymore. I was talking to a colleague of mine a few days ago who lives in Pennsylvania. She said the temperature was 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, for those of you who don't know Fahrenheit, that's 17 degrees centigrade. And it shouldn't be, it should be a lot less, let's say, okay? And you can imagine what this does to various plant and animal species. They go a bit berserk, right? Maybe humans are going berserk too. I have to think about this one. Anyway, do think about that. Pay attention to extreme weather events and see, it is an evidence of climate disruption. Now, there's a very interesting event occurring at Pennsylvania State University, which is very close to Juniata College, where we have a number of students at Juniata College, which is very close to Pennsylvania State University, about a 45-minute drive away. And perhaps some of you will go over to hear this lecture, which has become a source of great controversy. The lecture is by Professor Michael Mann, who is the director of Penn State's Earth System Science Center, and he's supposed to give a lecture this week entitled Confronting the Climate Change Challenge. Now, there has been a very nasty, apparently, Facebook campaign trying to get the university to disinvite him. It's a group called Common Sense Movement, Secure Energy for America Political Action Committee. And it's apparently a front for some coal industry interests, shall we say. At any rate, I'll send you a link to an article about it on the Guardian website, but it's also available, as the Guardian points out, on the .earth blog, which I'll also send you a link to, okay? So a couple of other things happening as well. One of the things that has really struck me over the years is it's really terrible, and we look a bit at this when we talk about population issues on the planet, and that is that people are making every effort to escape from both areas where the climate has created unsustainable societies. In other words, the economics are wrong. And also they're just trying to escape the negative economic consequences of globalization. So, as I pointed out, since 1993, I think it is, about 10,000 people trying to get to Spain from Africa have died at sea. And an equal or so number have done the same trying to get to Italy from North Africa. Yesterday morning, Saturday, somewhere between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, a boat, and these are often boats that can't really transport passengers, with 60 people on board, has gone down. And they were headed for Puerto Rico, illegal migrants. At least 10 people are dead and many, many others missing. So keep an eye on that story. It's a sad story, but you're going to see more and more of that. And when you get further into the course, I think it's week 5 or so, or theme 5 or so, the one on climate change, you can hear Gwynne Dyer, who talks about climate wars, talking about this phenomenon. He's had personal experience of it. So that's also worth paying attention to. Good news this week is that India has now a booming clean tech energy powerhouse. It's become an energy powerhouse in clean technology. It had a growth rate of 52% in the last year, and it's dwarfed the rest of the world's significant economies, solar, wind, etc. So that's very, very good news, even as the United States is cutting back. You might want to, I'll send you a link to that article as well. Do take a look at the exercise and inventory some of your clothing. You'll find t-shirts to be quite interesting. Where do they come from? Again, as always, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. If you haven't sent Jenna or Sadie or me your choices for learning circles, please do so. We'll be forming those in just over a week. So send us your, the guidelines for doing that are on the left-hand side of the course homepage. Do take a look at it and send us those choices so that we can sign you up for a learning circle in about 10 days' time. Hope you have a good week, and do be in touch, okay? All the best.